The National Desk, America's News Now.
From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Thanks for joining us on this weekend edition. We take a look at the big headlines of the week and we look ahead at what to expect, starting with the 4 big stories we've been following this week. On the move, a new migrant caravan is now making its way to the U.S.-Mexico border. Why the group is on a deadline. The housing crisis continues, evictions in some cities surpassing pre-pandemic levels. Plus, home prices hit a century high again. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visits Washington. The counter-protest filling the streets. But first, new matchup. President Biden drops out of the race for president. Vice President Kamala Harris takes his place. Organizers of the Democratic National Convention are now readjusting the program for a new presidential nominee. The event had taken nearly a year and a half to plan. Democrats are expected to vote as early as next month to legally nominate their candidate before the convention starts on August 19th in Chicago. Vice President Kamala Harris is still not the nominee. However, she has gained a majority of support from delegates. As Harris works to establish herself ahead of her party's formal nominating process, she's pressed for time to pick a running mate. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar takes a look at her path forward.
In her first official campaign video, Vice President Kamala Harris branding her presidential run with one word: freedom.
The freedom not just to get by, but get ahead. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom to make decisions about your own body.
Trying to appeal to voters who want a fresh start after concerns about President Biden's age bogged down what was the Biden-Harris campaign. Harris smashing fundraising records. Between grassroots supporters giving to the campaign and mega donors committing funds to political action committees, hundreds of millions of dollars have flowed in to support Harris. She'll need all the help she can get with just a little more than 100 days until Election Day. A new CNN poll conducted on Monday and Tuesday shows that, with a 3-point margin of error, there's no clear leader between Harris and former President Trump. The poll also shows Harris performing better than Biden did with young voters, black voters, and female voters. But the Trump-Vance campaign is in a race to brand her as extreme.
She is a radical left lunatic who will destroy our country. If you don't mind, I'm not going to be nice. Is that okay?
Already out with an attack ad calling Harris a San Francisco radical.
Harris's presidential campaign isn't even a week old yet, but already there's a bit of anxiety among Democrats about being outspent on radio and TV ads, 25-1, according to an Associated Press analysis. But some say Harris doesn't need to be spending on ads right now because of all of her earned media coverage.
I say, bring it on.
The attention on Harris is sure to continue as we watch for her decision on a running mate. Because of Ohio's upcoming ballot deadline, we could learn their name in the next 2 weeks. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Does the Department of Justice have a comprehensive strategy for how social media companies should deal with foreign influence in U.S. elections? According to the Inspector General, that's a no. The new report citing the DOJ and FBI has no specific guideline applicable to information sharing with social media companies. Republicans have criticized the DOJ's efforts to crack down on social media posts, a mission considered vital by U.S. national security officials. New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez will resign from his seat next month following his conviction last week on bribery charges. The state's governor, Phil Murphy, will now appoint someone to fill the remainder of Menendez's term, which ends on January 3rd. The resignation is effective August 20th. Menendez has said he plans to appeal the jury's decision. Family members of Americans believed to be held hostage by Hamas testified in front of Congress this week. They're demanding a final deal to bring their loved ones home.
I believe at this point, as an Israeli American, that any true friend of Israel today must pressure our prime minister to finish the deal now.
I was in Gaza for 51 days, and I saw everything. I felt everything, and we need to bring them back.
Aviva Siegel was kidnapped during the attack and released in November. Her husband, Keith, is still in Gaza. There's ongoing negotiations to free the hostages and end the war. The Justice Department has now submitted an agreement with Boeing where the aerospace company will plead guilty to a fraud charge. As we've reported, Boeing was accused of misleading U.S. regulators who approved the 737 MAX jetliner before two deadly plane crashes that killed 346 people. Under the agreement, Boeing must appoint an independent compliance monitor, serve 3 years of probation, and pay a $243.6 million fine. It also requires Boeing to invest at least $455 million in its compliance, quality, and safety programs. The judge on the case can either accept the agreement and the sentence worked out, or he could reject it. Developing right now, major freight railroads are rushing rail car inspections. That's according to a House hearing in the aftermath of the East Palestine train derailment. Federal inspectors say rail car checks are routinely less than 2 minutes per car. Between 2017 and 2022, a third of rail workers were cut, resulting in faster and fewer rail car inspections. A new warning about job scams, starting with a text message and ending with criminals having your personal information. As the National Desk Angelo Brown reports, these scams are on the rise.
You know the phrase, if it seems too good to be true? You may want to think about that. If you're looking for a job and then receive a random text message.
So they'll text you and say, hey, I'm a recruiter. I work for this company. I've seen your background. I've seen your resume. You're a perfect fit.
After a series of text messages comes the job offer. It looks legit.
The offer letter, they use real names, like people's real names. And I read the offer letter, like people that exist at that company.
Real names, fake job. Career specialist Julie Balke is hearing from job seekers getting these text messages.
She said, it really wasn't an interview. They just texted me questions back and forth. Is that normal? And I said, no.
This latest report right here from the Identity Theft Resource Center found that job scams are up nearly 120%. Scams that may start with a text message, ending with the job seeker filling out paperwork for employment, giving out sensitive information like their social security number or even financial information.
But your bank routing information, when you do direct deposit, they need that. And so it's really easy to fall for it.
Career experts are now warning these types of job scams will keep improving with the use of AI. They recommend always doing a background check on the company using platforms like LinkedIn. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
KFXA has shut down a student debt relief scheme targeting Spanish-speaking borrowers. The agency says the scammers pretended to be the Department of Education, luring in students with false promises of loan forgiveness. The scammers, based in Florida and Colombia, obtained millions of dollars from loan borrowers. A federal court has frozen their assets. It is the latest sign that the housing market remains unaffordable for millions of Americans. Home prices are the most expensive they've been this century. The median price of a previously owned home rose, as you can see here, to nearly $427,000 in June. New National Association of Realtors data shows it's the second straight month prices reached a fresh record high. Meantime, existing home sales fell 5.4% last month. And evictions are exceeding pre-pandemic levels in some major cities. Experts blaming a mix of surging rent prices and the end of COVID-era protections. Some of the cities impacted include Las Vegas, Nashville, Minneapolis, and Columbus, Ohio, as well as Houston and Fort Worth, Texas. Some state policies are also making evictions easier. Plus, more real estate groups taking ownership of properties instead of individuals. The 2024 Paris Olympics have just started, but are already plagued with controversy. Reports of a potential cheating scandal are making headlines after a Canadian drone was caught flying over Team New Zealand's football training facilities. Emma from the Fact Check team joins us, and cheating is always a point of contention among countries in the Olympics. The International Olympic Committee, this will likely fall under them, right?
Yeah, so the International Olympic Committee is the primary governing body of the whole Olympics. They set the rules and regulations, and then they work with other organizations to actually enforce them. Now, those other organizations include the World Anti-Doping Agency, the Court Board of Arbitration for Sport, the International Sports Federations, different national anti-doping agencies, plus wherever the Olympics is being held, there's a local organizing committee that's also involved.
What types of repercussions could athletes or teams face if they're caught cheating?
Yeah, so I dug into the IOC's charter, and it says they can be disqualified if it comes to light when the games are still going on, or if they find out after, the athlete or team could be stripped of their medals. The World Anti-Doping Agency says that they could also suspend or ban athletes for life if they're caught taking performance-enhancing drugs.
All right, Emma, thank you. And later on, Emma, we'll be back to discuss the commonality of Olympic cheating and whether it has increased over time. Turning to the border crisis, hundreds of migrants left southern Mexico last Sunday for the U.S. The Associated Press reports the new caravan is made up of people from about a dozen countries. Some are hoping to make it to the U.S. before November's elections, fearing former President Trump will follow through on a promise to close the border to asylum seekers should he win. A critical shortage of blood culture vials used for diagnostic tests is threatening to disrupt patient care. The shortage impacts vials that are used to diagnose sepsis and other deadly bloodstream infections. According to the CDC, about half of all U.S. laboratories use a blood culture system that is only compatible with the vials. Experts say the shortage will affect hospitals the most, as the tests are often needed to respond quickly to serious conditions. Coming up next here on the National Desk, America's News Now. Protecting kids on social media, the parents pushing for action on Capitol Hill. Plus, hitting the brakes, Americans aren't buying EVs, putting a wrench in President Biden's green energy plan. The models they're buying instead. Parents who lost children because of their experiences on social media were on Capitol Hill this past week. They urged lawmakers to pass a bill that would force online platforms to keep their youngest users from dangerous content. The National Desk, Janae Bowens, has a closer look at the proposed legislation.
The Kids Online Safety Act is getting a vote on the Senate floor this week. I spoke with a mom who lost her son by suicide. She said this bill could have saved her child's life. Relentless and threatening cyberbullying on Instagram and messaging apps led to David Molak dying by suicide when he was just 16 years old.
David's story really started a year before that. He was addicted to social media and online gaming.
David's mother, Maureen, has joined forces with other parents who have lost children to harm from social media to push lawmakers to pass the Kids Online Safety Act. It would have forced social media networks, messaging apps, and video game sites to put measures in place to prevent harassment, sexual exploitation, and bullying. Young users would also be required to have the option to limit or opt out of things like autoplay videos and personalized feeds.
This is not a partisan issue. It's a personal issue.
The bill has overwhelming bipartisan support.
How grateful we are to each of the advocates for repeatedly coming to the Hill, taking the time to visit with members. That is why there are 70 names on this bill.
And though it did not save her son, Maureen hopes it will save other lives.
Well, I would do anything to have my son back. Seeing this bill across the finish line is my second greatest wish.
1998 was the last time a law was passed to protect children online. Critics are raising First Amendment and privacy concerns about the bill. Even if it passes the Senate, it still has to get through the House. I'm Janae Bowens for the National Desk, America's News Now.
West Virginia's Attorney General has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to temporarily block new rules from the Environmental Protection Agency. He's requesting, alongside more than 20 other Republican states, to freeze the changes until the matter is resolved in federal court. The new rules call for existing coal and new natural gas power plants to capture or cut 90% of their climate pollution by the year 2032. According to the filing, the challengers say implementing these rules would be too expensive and could cause plants to shut down entirely. Joining Jan Jeffcoat to discuss is Scott Lincecum, Vice President of General Economics and Trade at the Cato Institute.
Gallup reports right now just 7% of Americans own an electric vehicle, and there are even more Americans now who say they would not buy one. In fact, 48%, up from 41%. So talk about the issues with the electric vehicle market here in America.
Sure, there's four big things that are causing problems. First is range anxiety. People are still worried about lack of charging stations and EV battery life, especially women worried about being stranded somewhere. And so that's a first one. The second is just uncertainty regarding all these new brands and will they stick around. Some are very cool technology, but who knows if they'll be there when you need a repair in a couple of years. One of the biggest ones, though, is price. The average price of the 10 most popular electric vehicles today is still $53,000. And the cheapest EV on the market is still almost $30,000. So that's a pretty big impediment, particularly given the economy right now. And then finally, good old politics. You know, when government gets involved in pushing a certain product, it's inevitable that there's going to be political backlash. And we've seen both parties targeting EVs, and Republican support for them has dropped significantly as Democrats are out there campaigning on this. Yes. So, you know, maybe things get better, but it's proving to be much more of a slog than the government thought it'd be.
Scott, I thought this was very telling because you always want to know if somebody is happy with their purchase. And it seems that nearly half of Americans who did buy an electric vehicle now regret that. A study, in fact, released last month by McKinsey's Mobility Consumer Pulse found 46% of EV owners are very likely to switch back to gas-powered vehicles for their next purchase. Even the consulting firm that conducted this said they did not expect this high percentage. So then what is the future of the EV market here in America, especially if we're hearing even those Americans who did buy one now say they want to switch back to a gas-powered car?
Yeah, it's a reminder that no amount of government policy can force consumers to buy what they don't want to buy. You know, while EVs, for example, are getting all the press, it's actually hybrids now that have gotten pretty popular instead, you know, so the government seems to have picked the wrong horse there. So, you know, given the billions of private investment and the billions more in government subsidies, if Americans are still, you know, disinterested, if they still don't like their EVs, that could mean big losses, not just for private investors, but for U.S. taxpayers, too. And it could also, though, mean some big wins for automakers like Toyota that actually put a big bet on hybrids and didn't go in on the EV craze.
Scott, the last few weeks have been the most tumultuous and consequential in recent political history, and obviously we know could impact the federal government for years to come. But the response from the financial markets and the non-political world has been fairly quiet. What do you make of this? Should we see more concern from the markets?
Yeah, it's surprising for us political types that, you know, American investors' reaction to all these crazy political events has been really calm. And it's still big private market actions, earnings reports, economic growth, inflation that are driving the stock market today. You know, believe it or not, this is mostly, I think, a good thing because it means that government policy and who's in the White House isn't driving the U.S. economy. Instead, it's still private actors. You know, policy can surely affect things at the margin, and there are surely a lot of policies we can improve. But today, it's still the big macroeconomic factors, private investors, companies, and you and me, we're still in charge, not those politicians.
Very quickly, I saw U.S. importers right now pulling forward overseas orders to avoid shipping disruptions and the rising freight rates and the, you know, all the geopolitical concerns obviously going on. How will importers, though, be affected if consumers do not pick up their spending?
Right. So if consumers don't buy, all these retailers and importers will be on the hook with a lot of unused inventory. So we'll be seeing a lot of clearance sales in December and January. But regardless, you know, this is a great example of how private actors in markets, they try to get ahead of changes in policy or other events. Here, retailers are worried about forthcoming tariffs. So they're buying early and getting it in early to avoid them. But that, of course, is a big risk. And it's a great example of how markets can adjust, but how policy, not even policy that's implemented, can create bigger market risks down the road.
Scott Lincecum, Vice President of General Economics and Trade at the Cato Institute. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Just ahead, Gen Z struggling to enter the workforce. How many are without jobs and how it could be driving up inflation? Plus, daring rescue after a whale capsized a boat off the coast of New Hampshire. Meet the teen brothers who jumped in to save its passengers. The National Desk team of reporters is bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America. In South Carolina, a popular college DJ has come up with a clever way to get young people to the polls this fall by throwing a massive party, and the only way to get in is registering to vote.
It's going to be a party. Young people love the party.
Isaiah Fields, a.k.a. DJ Zaypola, is a popular USC DJ. He's hosted more than 100 parties across the Midlands, bringing thousands of young people looking for a good time. In September, Pola wants to use his platform for the polls.
I had over 800,000 impressions of individuals between the age ranges of 18 to 25 at my events. So if I can just get a little bit of them just to come to another event that they already have been used to, been paying for free, and just to get registered to vote, I feel like it'll be a great tactic.
According to Pola, the big party he's planning in September is a way to encourage young people to vote in November. If they want to party, they have to show proof of being a registered voter or register at the door to get in. According to data from Tufts University in the South, Black and Latino youth make up a little more than 20% of the voting bloc that will have turned 18 since 2020.
Stunning video showing a whale capsizing a boat off the coast of New Hampshire was captured by a pair of teenage brothers. Look right here. This video going viral this week. Colin and Wyatt Yeager jumped in and saved the two men who were thrown from that flip boat. Incredibly, they weren't injured, but obviously a bit shaken up.
They were a little bit cold. They didn't really know what to make of it, but they were in good spirits. They were kind of laughing.
The boaters say this won't stop them from getting back out on the water. The Coast Guard says the whale was not injured during the incident. In Texas, Gen Z is having a hard time finding work, and experts say this may be driving inflation. The workforce is shrinking, and millennials are moving on from lower-wage entry-level jobs. Gen Z says they want jobs that pay them a livable wage, which may be driving up prices.
The Gen Z, at the same age as millennials were, are less likely to be in the labor force. And so when you have a smaller supply of labor, that will drive up the wages.
According to data released by the International Labor Organization, almost 20% of Gen Z teens and adults are not in school and don't have a job. Still ahead, an AT&T outage bringing down 911 call centers nationwide. What caused the issue that left millions without service? The Federal Communications Commission released its findings on the nationwide AT&T outage that left millions of users without service. According to the report, at least 25,000 emergency service calls were blocked during the outage in February. The outage was caused by a network change, forcing the entire system to enter protect mode, disrupting 125 million devices nationwide. AT&T says it has made changes to prevent the nationwide outage from happening again. Disneyland is avoiding a possible strike. On Tuesday, the theme park agreed to a tentative deal with its 14,000 employees. Union leaders didn't release information about the tentative deal, saying they will wait until the employees have reviewed it. A vote is expected on Monday. Employees have said they're fighting for fair wages, a fair attendance policy, seniority increases, and safer parks for cast members. McDonald's now extending its $5 meal deal after seeing a jump in customer traffic. The burger chain says the deal will be available through August at most U.S. locations. The promotion launched in June in response to weaker than expected sales. McDonald's said it will consider extending the deal beyond August after it releases its earnings report next week. Ahead in our next half hour, series of failures. What an Army investigation says led to the worst mass shooting in Maine's history. Plus, taking on pharmacy middlemen. A bipartisan group in Congress working to lower prescription drug costs. The three big companies they're blaming. You're watching the National Desk, America's News Now. You can catch us live weekdays from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, and anytime online at thenationaldesk.com. We'll be right back.
The National Desk, America's News Now.
America and Israel must stand together.
Vowing total victory, Prime Minister Netanyahu speaks to a divided Congress. Plus, protesters occupy the Capitol. The cleanup operation now underway.
We need to know what happened, play by play, moment by moment, second by second.
Getting answers. FBI Director Christopher Wray on the Trump assassination attempt. The shooter's chilling search history.
It's where do I go to work? What am I going to do? And am I going to be making a difference?
Police shortage persists after an exodus during COVID. What experts say it'll take to strengthen officer staffing. From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and protests continued in Washington, D.C. this week after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit for high-level talks with top lawmakers. As the National Desk, Matt Gelka tells us, the cleanup is ongoing following the fiery demonstrations.
Protests in support of Palestine happened outside of the White House as President Joe Biden met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It was the second straight day of demonstrations. As Netanyahu addressed Congress, thousands of mostly peaceful protesters filled the streets. When they hit Union Station, things took an anti-American and anti-Israeli turn. The American flag burned, a Palestinian flag was raised, and some of the graffiti read, "Hamas is coming." A group of House Republicans, including the House Speaker, raised the American flag back up Wednesday night.
We believe in this country. It is the greatest nation in the history of the world. It's the strongest, most powerful.
most benevolent, most free nation that has ever been. We should stand for that and stand with our allies and stand for freedom. That's what this flag represents.
You could see that most of the graffiti had been wiped away after the National Park Service spent most of the day, less than 24 hours later, trying to clean up. The former president called for jail time for people who burn the flag.
I think you should get a 1-year jail sentence if you do anything to desecrate the American flag. Now, people will say, oh, it's unconstitutional. Those are stupid people.
More than 20 people were arrested by multiple agencies. The over-the-top actions didn't land well with Democrats either. Vice President Kamala Harris called the flag burning and defacing of property despicable and unpatriotic. The House's Democratic leader said the aggressors should be held accountable.
It is unacceptable to deface public property, desecrate the American flag, threaten Jews with violence, or promote terrorist organizations like Hamas. Unacceptable.
Netanyahu's high-level talks could be consequential. White House officials say a ceasefire for hostages deal could be in the closing stages and an end to the almost 10 months long war in sight. For the National Desk in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
Developing now, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, also known as NORAD, says it intercepted 4 bombers flying near Alaska. 2 are from Russia, the other 2 were from China. The interception was made on Wednesday, and NORAD says the bombers didn't enter U.S. or Canadian sovereign airspace and that it isn't seen as a threat. Chinese defense officials say Chinese and Russian air forces organized a joint strategic air patrol in the relevant airspace of the Bering Sea. On Capitol Hill, House Republicans are once again facing the reality of their narrow majority. They're likely headed towards another stopgap spending bill when they return from recess in September. The House GOP has struggled to pass a series of spending bills over the last few weeks. Leadership sent members home earlier this week, and that means they won't consider any remaining bills before the August recess. A venue change could be in the works for Brian Kohberger, the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students. Attorneys argue media coverage of the case will make it impossible for him to get a fair trial in rural Latah County, where the stabbing took place. They're asking for it to be moved to the state's capital, Boise. Prosecutors oppose the move. They argue coverage was widespread enough that it won't make a difference in familiarity with the case. 3 U.S. Army officers have now been punished after an investigation found a series of failures which led to Maine's worst mass shooting in its history. The gunman in that case was reservist Robert Card, who claimed the lives of 18 people. The investigation revealed communication breakdowns in Card's military chain of command, including military and civilian health facilities failing to upload Card's discharge documents to the military's medical system more than 2 weeks after he left their care. The documents detailed the extent of his mental health issues, including homicidal ideations. The police staffing crisis is not easing up, despite hefty pay increases and huge bonuses. Here's the National Desk, Angelo Brown, diving into the latest numbers.
So what is it going to take to turn around the police staffing shortage? Money may not be the answer.
It's work-life balance. It's where do I go to work? What am I going to do? And am I going to be making a difference?
We have been following the crisis in police staffing since COVID and the 2020 police reform protests. Igniting an exodus of officers nationwide. 4 years later, Sergeant Betsy Smith, spokesperson for the National Police Association, says we still have not recovered.
We still have a political class and an activist class who says you don't need cops. Don't believe your lying eyes. Crime's going down.
So what do the numbers tell us? The Wall Street Journal reporting there are nearly 19,000 fewer officers in 2023 than 2019, a 3% drop. For example, our team in Baltimore reporting just last May that the Baltimore PD is short hundreds of police officers, and morale may be low as well. Ken Byer, Harbor of Grace National Law Enforcement Wellness Center.
They have zero trust in the department. They're being asked to do things they just can't do anymore. They're so short-staffed, and somebody's going to get hurt, and they all feel that way.
This April report from the Police Executive Research Forum points to some progress, finding for the first time since the start of the pandemic, agencies reported a year-over-year increase in total sworn staff. Agencies saw fewer resignations in 2023 than they did in 2021 or 2022. And retirements dropped back down to roughly where they were in 2019. PERF is basing the results on 214 law enforcement agencies that employ over 151,000 people. The small and medium agencies that responded to the Police Executive Research Forum survey now have more sworn officers than they had in January of 2020. And larger agencies, sworn staffing slightly increased during 2023, but is still more than 5% below where it was in January of 2020. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
The U.S. economy remains historically strong, but nearly 40% of Americans worry their income won't be enough to meet expenses. That's up from 28% in December 2021 and similar to the numbers seen during the Great Recession. To cope, Americans say they are adding side jobs, cutting down on driving, and putting more expenses on credit cards. New information, the Federal Trade Commission's ban on non-compete clauses can go into effect on September 4th while lawsuits play out. That's the ruling from a federal judge in Pennsylvania. Non-compete clauses cover about 30 million American workers, preventing them from changing jobs within a similar industry. Several businesses sued to block the FTC's new rules, saying it would prevent them from protecting trade secrets and sensitive information. Iowa now set to become the latest state to implement a fetal heartbeat bill. Starting Monday, abortions will be illegal as soon as a fetal heartbeat can be detected around 6 weeks into pregnancy. The state Supreme Court denied Planned Parenthood's request to challenge the law. Exceptions for the law include cases of rape, incest, and medical emergencies. Finding common ground, both Republicans and Democrats are blaming pharmacy middlemen for driving up drug costs. The House Oversight Committee heard testimony this week from the three largest pharmacy benefit managers, also known as PBMs, alleging CVS, Caremark, Express Scripts, and Optum Rx engaged in anti-competitive practices to line their pockets, a charge the companies deny.
These PBMs frequently tout the savings they provide for payers and patients through negotiation, drug utilization programs, and spread pricing. But evidence indicates that these schemes increase costs for patients and payers.
In a for-profit healthcare system, we know companies are going to seek profits, but it's unacceptable for those profits to come at the expense of patients getting the basic medicine that they need.
PBMs have long argued that they drive down prices. An interim report from the FTC released earlier this month also points the finger at PBMs for inflated drug costs. A new United Nations report finds there were 1.3 million new HIV infections worldwide in 2023. Since 2010, new HIV infections are down 39% globally, with AIDS-related deaths hitting 630,000 in 2023. Still, new infections are rising in Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and Latin America. The agency is calling on world leaders to boost resources for prevention and treatment if they want to end the AIDS pandemic as a public health threat by 2030. The 2024 Paris Olympics are underway, but before even starting, the topic of cheating was making headlines after some recent alleged cheating scandals came to light. Emma from the Fact Check team joins us now, and over the years, is cheating becoming more common among Olympic teams and athletes? Or is monitoring just better?
Yeah, so the answer to that is a little bit complex here. Over the years, advances in detecting cheating and more of a spotlight on the importance of transparency have made cheating incidents become more public and easier to spot. The World Anti-Doping Agency, also known as WADA, wasn't established until 1999. So before then, it was much harder to streamline testing for performance-enhancing drugs that just went across the board.
Speaking of, it's recently come to light that 23 top Chinese swimmers, they tested positive for a banned substance before the Tokyo Olympics. So the question is, who's in charge of holding them accountable? It's kind of evasive.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be WADA. They're the governing agency, but they've said there's not enough evidence to intervene here, and that's where this whole hierarchy thing gets tricky. So since WADA dismissed the whole issue, the U.S. opened a probe into WADA's handling of this incident because it did seem a little sketchy. And since then, the IOC issued a statement basically saying, America, stay out of it and respect WADA's authority, even going so as far as to threatening to revoke the 2034 Olympics from the U.S. if they do continue that probe. So it's getting intense here.
Right. Okay. We will watch this. Emma, thank you. For more on this Fact Check team topic, including links to their sources, scan the QR code on your screen or visit thenationaldesk.com. Developing now, police in France say they disrupted several plots targeting the 2024 Olympics, and that includes the arrest of a Russian man authorities say planned to destabilize the games. He's been charged with conducting intelligence work for a foreign power. Meantime, another man was arrested on suspicion of planning a violent action. 35,000 officers will be on duty each day of the Olympics. More than 45,000 were on hand for opening ceremonies. Organizers are also monitoring for cyber attacks and working to dispel disinformation campaigns. Still to come, our team of correspondents breaks down this week in Washington, from VP Harris's polling numbers to the attempted assassination of former President Trump.
Welcome back. Our Washington Bureau covers the nation's capital every day, and our team of correspondents reports on the important issues facing the country and how they impact you. There's been a change at the top of the Democratic presidential ticket this past week. National correspondent Atra Elnishar, what's next for President Biden's replacement, Vice President Kamala Harris, and what are polls saying about her level of support?
Well, this new CNN poll that we saw this week that was conducted on Monday and Tuesday shows that when it comes to a Harris-Trump national matchup, there is no clear winner when you factor in the margin of error. It also tells us she is doing better than Biden did with female voters, young voters, and Black voters, key constituencies. So next, we're going to be watching to see if she does better than Biden in specific swing state polls. What's also next for Harris? Picking a running mate. And to save you some time and a wonky explanation on the nominating process this year for Democrats, they've got some deadlines in Ohio to consider. She basically is up against a 2-week deadline for picking that candidate that's going to run alongside her. And this time last week, she was the running mate. So it's a totally massive process for her to go through, but she's got to go through it quickly. And then there's branding herself to the country, reintroducing herself as a presidential candidate and doing that more effectively and quicker than the Trump-Vance campaign is going to try and brand her to voters.
Yes, a lot of work in the next 100 or so days. Meanwhile, significant developments in the investigation into former President Donald Trump's assassination attempt. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins, what's the latest?
Well, it's been a dramatic week on Capitol Hill when it comes to digging into what exactly happened about the security breakdown that day. So we started on Monday with the now former director of the Secret Service here on Capitol Hill, and Kimberly Cheadle. She faced a grilling by lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. They wanted to know what happened, who was responsible, and she wasn't really able to give them any answers, and that only amplified calls for her resignation. She ended up resigning the following morning. And then on Wednesday, we saw FBI Director Christopher Wray on Capitol Hill. Now, he did give lawmakers a little more insight into what they were able to uncover thus far into this investigation. So Director Wray confirming there were the cartridges of 8 shots. So that would suggest the shooter was able to get 8 shots fired on the roof. We also learned from Director Wray that the shooter, Thomas Crooks, actually flew a drone about 200 yards away from the stage just 2 hours before the rally started. He also had some explosive devices. 2 of those were in his vehicle, so he likely had some other things planned as well. Director Wray said so far it looks like Crooks did act alone. They are still working to decrypt his messages on his devices to figure out what his motive was, because, Steve, that's something that still remains a mystery.
Right, and I'm sure we'll learn more in the coming months. One thing you rarely see on Capitol Hill, the House unanimously getting together to put together a task force to look into all this. We'll be watching that very closely. Meanwhile, massive protests, mostly peaceful, in Washington, D.C. this past week, but some turned violent. National correspondent Matt Galka, what were they protesting and what happened on the streets of D.C.?
Yeah, Steve, this was all about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to America and to Washington, D.C. this week. And it was during that joint address that he had to Congress that thousands of people, pro-Palestinian supporters, were in the streets protesting his visit, calling for a ceasefire, calling for hostages to be released, and calling for an end to the civilian suffering that they've seen in Palestine. But it was when they got to Union Station here in Washington, D.C., that's when things went from the peaceful protest to getting the message out to something different, anti-American and anti-Israel. They removed, a couple of the people removed the flag from one of the flagpoles at Union Station, burned that flag, replaced it with a Palestinian flag, and then had vandalized, had graffiti all over one of the monuments out there near at the station. One of the graffiti tags reading, "Hamas is coming." So the Democrats, who have been mostly sympathetic to the cause, or more sympathetic to the cause, it's not landing with them. Republicans already rejecting the protest, but Democrats too. You had the leader of the House Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries, calling for accountability, saying the people who did the vandalism, they should be held accountable and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And in the end, there were about 20 or so arrests that stem from these protests. But the message from a lot of people who even support that cause is, when that kind of stuff happens, the message gets lost and people only focus on the actions of those few people. Steve.
Matt, Kayla, Atra, great reporting as always. Thank you all for your hard work. Back to you.
Still ahead here on the National Desk, Oklahoma issues new rules about how the Bible should be taught in the classroom. Reaction pouring in from teachers and administrators. Plus, multiple propane tanks exploding, sparking a fire in a popular Seattle park, who authorities believe is behind the destruction. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. From a fire at a homeless encampment in Washington State to a debate over Bibles in Oklahoma classrooms, we're taking the pulse of America. But we start in Maryland, where a business owner's Israeli flag has been stolen for the fourth time.
Outside Dr. John Parkerson's office, the Israeli flag is flying again. Over the weekend, it once again became the target of thieves.
I went to leave to go home and turned and the flag was gone.
Surveillance cameras captured the action late Friday afternoon. In a matter of seconds, a thief had ripped the Israeli flag right off the doctor's front porch.
You see his expression is just anger. It's hate, the face of evil.
The thief hasn't been seen since, but he has been seen before.
Called the police, and it was the same fellow that did it twice before. Exact same fellow.
Parkerson is convinced it's the same thief who stole his flag the first week of June. And the same thief who returned 2 weeks later to steal it again.
Just a matter of resilience. And gosh, if the people in Israel can put up with it, I can stand a little pain, as the song goes.
In the early evening, flames ripping through Kinnear Park as thick smoke cascades across Queen Anne. The result was a frantic evacuation of everyone here as the fire scorched everything in its path, including at least 2 propane tanks. In fact, shortly after the first 911 calls came in, witnesses reported 2 large booms as ferocious flames caused those tanks to explode. All of it, firefighters say, coming from a tent or encampment on this property. Como's cameras also recorded the aftermath when we came across this. A man in handcuffs, surrounded by officers in the middle of this park. According to Seattle police, he was arrested on an unrelated $7,500 assault warrant. The Police tell us his possible involvement into this fire still being investigated, all as the Arson and Bomb Squad investigates to see how this ferocious fire happened in the first place, and damage assessments begin in this popular spot of Queen Anne.
The districts will comply.
As Superintendent Ryan Walters makes that claim, some districts say otherwise. The Norman superintendent tells Fox 25 that after seeing the OSDE's guidance, his district will not require Bibles in the classroom, and that MPS will continue to follow the current state standards.
Well, I will hold the individuals accountable and the districts accountable. And listen, I'm going to tell them, do not test me. We are not going to allow you to push a left-wing agenda on kids by lying to them, by not telling them when the Pilgrims mention religion, when Thomas Jefferson mentions our rights come from our Creator.
In Mustang, school leaders say they are reviewing the guidance and thinking about how to implement the mandate effectively and appropriately. They add that they're committed to following laws while ensuring that students have a welcoming learning environment.
We have in the guidelines today, you're not to promote a religion. This is not evangelizing the kids. This is not promoting one religion over another. But listen, it's the most referenced book in the 17th and 18th centuries.
Coming up, honoring his legacy, how the U.S. Postal Service is commemorating the memory of game show host Alex Trebek. Hunter Biden's criminal tax trial will begin on September 9th in California. That's according to the federal judge overseeing the case. President Biden's son was charged last year with failing to pay $1.4 million in taxes between 2016 and 2019, while also filing false tax reports. The trial was supposed to begin last month, but was delayed by his trial on felony gun charges. President Biden's son Hunter is dropping his lawsuit against Fox News. An attorney for Hunter filed to voluntarily dismiss the lawsuit over the weekend, and Hunter sued Fox News about 3 weeks ago for allegedly violating New York's revenge porn law for publishing explicit images of him. Not clear why the lawsuit was dropped. The images were shown in a documentary on Fox's streaming service Fox Nation in 2022. Fox took down the program and said Hunter's lawsuit was politically motivated. Many early adopting electric vehicle owners are having buyer's remorse. According to a survey conducted by McKinsey, nearly 30% of EV owners globally are likely to switch back to internal combustion engine vehicles. Within the U.S., that number is even higher at 46%. In addition, 34% of EV owners say the total cost of owning the models is too high, leading EV adoption to stall in the U.S. A new study indicates smoking marijuana before or during pregnancy can have serious health risks. A study in the JAMA Internal Medicine Journal links THC to lower birth weight in babies and higher chances of needing NICU care. The Mayo Clinic also finds marijuana use can lead to conditions like preeclampsia and lower blood platelet levels. The U.S. Postal Service now honoring the game show host Alex Trebek. New stamps resembling the Jeopardy game show board will be available in a set of 20. Each stamp features a clue about the host with answers appearing underneath. After hosting the show for 37 seasons, Trebek died in 2020 from pancreatic cancer. NASA is celebrating the 25th anniversary of its Chandra X-ray Observatory with a never-before-seen release. 25 X-ray images highlight the observatory's silver anniversary in space. The space shuttle Columbia launched Chandra into orbit in 1999 to help astronomers get answers to some of space's biggest mysteries. Its data continues to be used together with NASA's powerful James Webb Space Telescope and others recently discovering the furthest black holes ever found. That'll be all for us on the weekend edition of the National Desk, America's News. Now, don't forget, you can catch us live from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Check your local listings. And you can also watch us online and catch up with the latest headlines on thenationaldesk.com. Thanks for watching the weekend edition of the National Desk. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. And from all of us here, have a great week.